Middle-aged woman gets a divorce and then regrets it. What a shocker. So this is a piece written by a 44-year-old woman in the I paper, which I believe is a British publication, in a column called The Divorce Diaries. And the title is I'm starting to regret my divorce. I'm stuck dating depressed dads. So this is her take on life post divorce and like trying to date. And according to her, life is not actually what it's cracked out to be after you get a divorce. So she opens it up by talking about how she re-downloaded Hinge for the second time in 2 weeks, and she laments how the dating apps are designed to get you to come back. So even though Hinge says it's designed to be deleted. In reality, I think everyone knows this, that a lot of these apps are in the business of catering to single people. So they keep people single and they want them to keep not only just coming back, but paying for more premium matches. So they gatekeep like the good matches. And they're not, they're not necessarily in the business of bringing people together. And I think it really comes down to how you use them, right? Like I think everything is a tool. And if you like abdicate any responsibility over your dating life and you just rely solely on these apps, I think you're gonna be pretty sorely disappointed, like this person was. And she says dating post divorce wasn't meant to be such a disappointment, but in reality, a lot of these older middle-aged and aging women are starting to realize like, hey, maybe I made a mistake here. And so she says here, the prospect of being free and single to mingle after 20 years of marriage, kids, and cohabitation dazzled me. At least at first, it shimmered with hope, renewed passion, steamy sex, and crackle and fizz of connection. This really illustrates like the mindset of a lot of these women. It's like this isn't reality. This isn't life. Life is incredibly boring. It's monotonous. And like once you accept that and you find like you start looking for joy in the simplicity of life and like the day-to-day routine, rather than constantly looking for spark and romance and things to shimmer and things to shine. Like once you stop chasing those ephemeral things and you start accepting what is, like life has a lot more meaning to it. But for a lot of women, I think they have the Sex in the City mentality where they highly romanticize life. They expect so much more out of it than what reality actually has to offer. And then they do things to deconstruct their life and implode it in search of this alternative, this better version of life that's supposed to exist. And then when they start taking action to seek out this better life, so getting a divorce and going on the dating apps and dating and all that kind of stuff, they realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe what I had before was good after all. Maybe like this new version isn't better. And that's what she says. The reality simply hasn't lived up to the fantasy. The grass isn't, as it turns out, really isn't greener after all. She says that her marriage ended because that her and her husband had grown apart. They'd never had another boyfriend and he had no other girlfriend. So in 20 years, we were more like old friends than a couple in love, but I swear casual dating never used to be as bad as it is today. Like, yeah, like when like your life, you're gonna go through ebbs and flows, right? Like it's not going to be the Disneyfied version of like Prince Charming and Cinderella all the time. You're gonna have ebbs and flows, and the whole point of marriage is to like work through that, and you're working in partnership with another person. You're not just like cohabitating and old friends. Like, yeah, I hope like you're friends with one another and you enjoy spending time with one another, and you have to do work, right, to maintain like the romantic side of things. But like it's not going to be butterflies and rainbows and roses and chocolates all the time, right? And if you're not willing to put in the work to get kind of the experience you're looking for, like that's also on you. And I get the sense here that she just was kind of complacent. She was in the passenger seat of her marriage. She just, you know, she was a wife and probably has, you know, I think she's a writer, so she career as a writer, you know, raising kids, all that kind of stuff. And it was just like coasting by, and then woke up in middle age, like so many people do. And was like, wait, what am I doing here? My life's almost half over. Like I haven't gotten the experiences that I want. And then, you know, the regret and stuff sets in. So I think the problem here isn't the marriage or the relationship, it's the complacency. And if people want, you know, something different, like they need to put in different, like more effort and get those better outputs. She goes on to talk about an experience in the 90s when she went out to clubs in East London and they would snog. I think that's making out. I don't know what that is. So if you're in the UK, translate, please. She snogged a Premiership footballer or two. She calls out Frank Lampard here. But yeah, like, okay, so again, when I read this, I'm like going in my mind to like a movie, right? I'm envisioning scenes in a movie where this happens. And I'm sure for some people, like this is reality, but for a lot of people, I don't necessarily think it is. I remember like, in college going out to bars and thinking it was supposed to be one thing, and it just like it was really boring. I'm gonna be honest. It was incredibly boring. I hated paying for overpriced drinks. Like it just wasn't fun. So I just didn't go out very much because it was incredibly boring. And everyone still today, it's like, okay, people are like, oh, gotta go out on the weekend, gotta go out like on a Saturday night. Here in Austin, people are like, gotta go out to 6th Street. Like it's all the same thing. It's one bar after another, all offering the same overpriced drinks. And the more you drink, the less like inhibition you have, okay, but like the less fun it gets over time. And then as you get older, you grow out of this phase, right? So in the 90s, if you're 20 something, like it's fun, you're youthful, like you're carefree, you don't have responsibilities, you can kind of do whatever you want, you have like the physiological stamina to handle late nights and being hungover. In your 40s, you don't. Like at some point that stuff stops being fun. And it seems like a lot of people just are nostalgic for their youthful time, and they haven't accepted the fact that they've gotten older. And so they look back to like this woman does here in the 90s, going out to bars in London, and like it's like this bygone era, and she wants to relive this experience, and she'll never be able to. She'll never get that experience back. And so she says, yet now 30 years later, I find myself on the other side of the dating cavern, where every man seems to be more bitter and jaded than the one before, especially the depressed, divorced dads. Like, yeah, I don't blame them. Here in the US, when you get divorced, usually everything is handed to the woman. Half of everything the man owns, custody of the kids, all that kind of stuff. So men have a lot to lose. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame them for being bitter and jaded. And, women disproportionately are the ones who initiate divorce. I think it's 70%. And a lot of it, it's no fault divorce. So they just wake up one morning and they're like, okay, I'm done being married to you. I'm going to take your house. I'm going to take everything you own and see you later. And then that's kind of how it is. So yeah, I don't blame them for being bitter and jaded because it kind of sucks. So she says, I think age has a lot to do with it. By your 40s, you're covered in war wounds from relationships gone sour. And a lot of people bring that bitterness into their online prompts, but the gamification of dating apps has made us all more cynical, even Gen Z. Well, yeah, and this makes sense because she's looking for something different. She's looking for the nostalgia and the fantasy of a world that doesn't exist. Like her ideal version of what she wants right now does not map to reality because the dating pool she has access to are, guys who are covered in emotional relationship war wounds from their marriages that came to an end, or one thing or another that happened. Whereas you have all these women in their 40s, 50s, some in their early 60s who are just like, for them it's like a second lease on life, right? And she talked about the prospect of being free and single to mingle after 20 years of marriage dazzled her. Like I don't think divorced dads are going onto these apps being like, oh yeah, I'm dazzled by the prospect of going through this yet again. And so this completely flies over the head of a lot of women. So she blames the algorithms that they don't want us to be happy, that they serve as bad, incompatible, and unappealing matches. And that's the reason why no one is falling in love, because if we do, then we'll stop using the apps. And sure, that's certainly part of it. And I think there is a business case to be made for trying to keep people single, sure, certainly. I don't necessarily know that's like the only explanation though. I think it's, again, people approaching these apps with the wrong expectations. You have, guys are on there because I think a lot of guys are hopeless romantics and just, want to find love again. And you have these women who are just out there, just waiting to use and abuse, a lot of men. Okay. So she goes through and she talks about, some of the guys that she's dated. And so like she talks about one guy who, recently discovered, I think his wife was having an affair. So he went on Hinge, and she was, she frames it here that she was, trying to be another friend, but kind of like chastising him for being on the app. And then she goes on to like criticize men in their 40s who can't adult, they can't function, just don't understand basic things. And Yeah, I mean that's like the older you get on these apps, I think that's certainly going to be the case. Like the quality is definitely going to go down because all the good ones are locked up, right? So and that's that's how it is. So she talks about here how she so keep in mind this woman was married for 20 years, had what probably was a decently good life and decently good marriage. She just got bored with it and threw it away, and so now she's dove into the dating market. She's in the deep end trying to find love again, but I don't think she actually wants to. I think she talks about casual dating, so I think she's just looking for fun. And so this is what she gets. And so I can't help but wonder how much of this is the problem of men, and how much of this is the problem of this woman and her ability to, or lack of ability to discern quality men from everyone else and to attract quality men. So she talks about how she had a then boyfriend of a year who was living a double life. So he had a second girlfriend who he lived with, and she apparently had a cat, so he wasn't actually single. There was the 40-something who had been in between jobs his whole life, the 45-year-old who told me he doesn't have a house, that he couch surfs through the UK and Europe, using friends and hotels and Airbnbs. Yeah. She says, one man I dated briefly 3 years ago told me his life dream was to become a house husband, because he liked being lazy and he wanted to stay home while the woman, she would go out and work. Unsurprisingly, like feminism has definitely created this. Like everyone wants to be a girl boss. So I don't blame guys who want to be house husbands, especially if you have like a go-getting girl boss who's gonna bring all the bacon home. She says here, then there are men who lack even the basic semblance of hygiene. She says the same lazy boyfriend warned her before she visited his apartment, that his apartment can use a deep clean, and when he got there, he'd never heard of bleach or curtains. That he just gets up when it ggets light out. He doesn't use ventilation in the bathroom. Like yeah, like that. Yeah, like that's what you're gonna encounter in your 40s. Um, she also complains that about a guy who took her to an anarchy bookshop, referred to her as comrade, and that he broke his back because he broke into an arms factory. So this is like the types of dates this woman is going on. So I don't know how much of it is the apps that are to blame, and how much of it is this woman and who she's like connecting with on these apps. So she says, when I asked what he was looking for, he didn't know yet. And she complains, to have reached 50 and to not know what you want from your relationship isn't just immature, but distinctly unattractive. Again, she doesn't know what she wants for hers either. She like blew up a 20-year marriage, and she thinks like she's going to be dazzled by the dating market. And it looks like she just wants like casual hookups until, I don't know, she finds someone. But that's kind of where it's at. Like these women don't have a plan after they get divorced. They just think the grass is greener on the other side and that divorce is the solution to all their problems. And then they get divorced and they're like, okay, well, now what? So yeah, that is equally unattractive. Like look in the mirror. You're no different than these men. Okay. So another man, age 40, a homeowner, told me he made peace with the idea he wouldn't have children of his own, but then said that he didn't want to date anyone with kids, aka her, because he didn't want to rule anything out. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, why would a guy want to? This is a difficult thing, but why would a guy want to like raise someone else's children and be responsible for that? I understand men do that, for sure, and it's definitely like when you have kids and you're dating, it makes it harder. But yeah, like if he wants kids of his own someday, he might not want to date anyone with kids because he wants to like reserve the role of parenting for like his future kids. And people do change. People do like, if you meet the right person, you might wake up one morning and be like, whoa, I suddenly want kids. That definitely does happen. So yeah, I wouldn't take that as personal. Like he said, he didn't want to rule anything out. So he's open to options, but clearly has, expectations for himself and what he wants for his future. She says, with so many men falling so short in the appeal department and being the grown-ups their age should dictate, is it any wonder women like me are choosing to stay single or are choosing to date women instead? Okay, women don't consider this. So women are a civilizing force in the world, okay? This is one of our superpowers, I think. We, through being like domestic goddesses, we create order and stability, and like we make things happen in the home that guys wouldn't necessarily do on their own. And it's not like they're not capable. It's just there isn't always the impetus to want to do things a certain way. So like the guy who didn't have curtains, right? Like for him, like having curtains, not that big of a deal for him. So he's not going to do it. But if he had a woman in his life, like she probably would, because like she understands those kind of things. Okay. So you have to consider the fact that we are in this huge dating crisis. Like women just have unrealistic expectations of men. They're pushing so many men to the side. You have feminism and its toxicity, and that is pushing so many men to the side. So they're just like being left out of the dating market. No one wants to touch them. And then you have the ones who are being, forcibly single. They're being divorced. And so you have women who have essentially abdicated their responsibility and their role of helping civilize men. And then they complain when the men aren't civilized. And this is exactly like what's happening here. It's not so much like she expects them to be grown-ups their age. And they are like biologically grown-ups, yes, but socially, they and culturally, if the women aren't present in their lives, like they're not providing the balancing force that brings order and stability in people's lives. And I think women don't really understand this. And it's not even just within the home, it's within communities as well. Like women have naturally and historically been the ones building community. So we talk about people feeling isolated and alone. Well, part of that is because women have abdicated their responsibility of being community builders. Like we don't do that anymore. We're not playing that role. So when women don't play their role, is it any wonder that like men aren't playing the role that women expect of them either? Like if there's no one woman in your life and you have no prospect of dating and you're kind of hopeless, like yeah, you're going to eat ramen and play video games all day. Why wouldn't you? Like why would you put in effort to be like this strong grown-up dude, when you don't have to and there's no reason to? By like women's presence in men's life, like we push men to be better. Like that's one of our jobs and our roles is we push the men in our lives to be better and to strive to do great things. And if we're not there, if we're not present, or if we are present and we're just nagging and we're mean and we're vitriolic and we're telling men how evil and awful they are the whole time, like, is it any wonder that they're not stepping up to the plate in the ways that these women expect them to? So I think a lot of this is on the shoulders of women. By being absent and not stepping up to the plate, like we have set men up to fail. And so this is part of our problem. Like we've done this. So we've created the men that we don't want to date. And then women like this are the ones who are complaining about it. So I think a lot of the responsibility is also on women. Okay, she says, I, for one, have been so put off by men in their 40s, I've turned to their ex-wives. Wow, okay. Did not see this article taking that turn. She says, I've snogged more than a few on mom's nights out and have dated several women after sparks flew at the playground. It's one thing that I have enjoyed in this era of life after divorce, being able to explore the same-sex love affairs I've always wondered about. Interesting. And this is fascinating because there's this whole like hetero-fatalist movement that's been happening of late where you have women like this who are just so put off by men, by their behavior, or their perceived behavior, by their lack of appeal, that they're just like lamenting the fact that they're attracted to men in the first place and they're looking to switch teams. They're like, okay, like men clearly aren't it. Like this isn't working. Let me like go try to be a lesbian. And this is happening. I've covered this. The New York Times has written about this. I covered an economist from, I think, University of Pennsylvania, who divorced her husband and then became a lesbian. Like this is definitely happening. And women are thinking like, okay, the grass is greener on the other side. And it doesn't necessarily have to be men. Like if what she's like outlined here, like clearly they're not meeting her expectations. So it's like, okay, let's, turn to the women. And I don't think like that's the solution either. Because if the women are the problem, like changing teams isn't going to make it any better. She says, what I realized is that by this age and season of life, we each carry so much baggage that it's hard to start something new and romantic at all unless you've done extensive work on yourself. In fact, that's because one of my deal breakers, don't come near me unless you've done therapy. Oh my gosh. Because we all need it, especially the men who are 50 and are still saying they're not sure what they want. So basically, a therapy is like code for like being baptized in feminist ideology. Like that's where it's a lot of it's being transmitted to women. So by saying that, she's like saying like you have to have gone through therapy because I need to know for certain that you are the type of man that is going to be submissive to me, submissive to my desires and my will, and you are going to provide the life I want because by virtue of being submissive, you are going to be something I can mold and you're malleable and you're not going to be the strong like male like archetype that is going to put me in my place. Like I'm going to put you in your place. So that's kind of how I read this. Let me see. Okay. She says, right now, it feels like dating simply isn't worth it. I wouldn't say I fully regret my marital split, but I would say that unless you're really, really miserable, think carefully before you detonate that divorce button. Yeah, I mean, I think she clearly does regret her, like, her marital split. She calls it her divorce. Because it's clearly not like panning out for her, and as like every year that passes as she gets older, it's not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. She says if you're tempted to exit your marriage because the prospect of starting all over again with someone new seems fresh and exciting, take it from me, it can be harder than you think to find a good or even good enough prospect, and speed dating singles nights and swiping are all they're cracked up to be. Rather than sizzling with potential, they can feel sad and draining, more like shopping the reduced section at the supermarket. Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, she puts it pretty on point there. But yeah, it's not. And I want to like where these women like are getting this from, why they think it's better. I mean, I know the answer is social media, right? And just the media in general. And divorce culture has been proliferated and amplified on different media outlets. So I totally get that. It's like you're not scrolling through Netflix on a Friday night and watching a movie about this wonderful stay-at-home mom and the family she's raised, right? There's no movies about that. So this is definitely being subconsciously ingrained through culture. But yeah, like you have to wake up and realize like this is definitely a cultural psyop, and it's not like why do you need to start over? Why do you like even just telling you from like a career perspective, like it's harder than people realize, you know? Like leaving one career, starting a whole new one. It's harder than people realize, and I think if people try to do what I did, I've had a career in DC, left, have been kind of working on my own Korean content, writing, all that kind of stuff for the last several years. I think most people probably would have given up in the second year, to be totally honest with you, because it's been incredibly difficult. Every year there's a new challenge that arises. The most significant one I've been dealing with is loss of freelance writing income due to proliferation of AI and the change in search. And so that's, you know, you have to constantly navigate and you have to constantly adapt. And that's what this woman doesn't realize is when you start out on your own, when you're starting from scratch, you're starting at zero. So you have to build and work towards whatever you want, whatever you're trying to achieve. And that's going to take time. And if you don't have time or you're not willing to put in the time, you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So this is, I mean, ending a marriage is no different than I would say like ending a career and starting over. Like, yeah, you can do it, sure. But it's going to take time. It's not going to provide the returns you want as quickly as you expect them to. She says, only get divorced if you're really sure because it doesn't always come up roses like you think it will unless Frank Lampard is single. Where are you, Frank? Oh my gosh. Okay, because Frank Lampard is going to date this woman. Okay. Yeah, so that is this essay. It's quite the doozy, but it really like tunes you into the psychology of women right now, especially middle-aged women. And these women are sharing these stories because they're looking for validation. They're looking for validation from other women that they've made the right choice, and they're looking for, you know, the woman's sphere to come up alongside them and pat their backs and tell them that it's okay, everything's going to be fine, you know, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, these women have been sold a lie. And I think they're coming to terms with the fact that they've been sold a lie, and they don't really know where to go from here. So part of this is like looking for validation. Part of it too, I think, is like a slight warning to younger women and, you know, those who might be considering following their same footsteps. Like, you know, it's not dating after marriage, you know, later in life, not what it's cracked out to be. Like, maybe you should reconsider. So I do appreciate her warning here, but I think this goes for everyone. Like, unless there's a very good reason to get a divorce, like divorce just should not be on the table, and you have to you have to work through it. You know, you have to work through relationships in life, and you know that's part of the human experience, and part of living is you're going to have trials that come up and tribulations, and you got to work through them, and you'll grow as a person as a result. So I think people lose sight of that. They just want the quick fix. You know, they the quick return on investment. Like they don't want to do the work. They just want to be complacent. They want an easy life, and life is not meant to be easy. So that's what I have for you today. I would love to know your thoughts on this, especially if you're an older guy who's experienced the dating market with women like this. I'd be curious to know what your experience has been like. Thanks as always for watching. If you enjoyed this commentary, I'd love it if you would like, subscribe, and also please share with anyone you know, because I am consistently getting shadow banned by the algorithm because YouTube doesn't like what I have to say. So share this as well. Appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the next video.